tearing down the walls between provinces with a Canada Day deadline. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The answers you need
from the people in the know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
It's one of the big promises from the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, ending all interprovincial trade barriers by Canada Day, July 1st. There was some progress on that file this week. At an event in Toronto, the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, and the Premier of Manitoba, Wab Kinew, signed an agreement that aims to eliminate all the trade barriers between those two provinces. For Premier Ford, this builds on similar agreements he has recently announced with the governments of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, and he said more deals are in the works.
Not at all, considering the federal government kind of falls under their jurisdiction as well as ours, and they want to do it by July the 1st. I think we're going to have quite a few signed. We're looking forward to signing with PEI, looking forward to signing with Saskatchewan and Alberta, and we're working. I talked to Francois Legault just through text messaging. So I think we're all going to come on board, and I think we're moving fairly quick, actually. So before July the 1st, hopefully, we can get all the territories and provinces on board. And it'd be a shame if they weren't, because, you know, they're going to miss the train, and it's not going to benefit their communities. So I'd highly recommend everyone hop on board. It's really going to benefit every jurisdiction from coast to coast to coast in our country.
Trade and regulatory barriers between provinces are estimated to cost the Canadian economy somewhere between $50 billion and $130 billion a year. Experts say they act as an internal tariff. They cause higher prices for Canadians. They reduce business competitiveness, and they hinder labor mobility. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew suggested that given the situation in the United States these days, trade barriers between provinces need to come down, and big nation-building projects have to get moving.
When it comes to interprovincial trade, we're willing to knock down these barriers. Manitoba, at the start of this process, was already one of the leaders with the fewest barriers, and so we're willing to continue that good work and want to put out that warm and hearty handshake to all the other premiers to join us and do this work together. And we're serious when it comes to the big national unity nation-building projects as well, too. We brought back 500 megs of power that we are exporting to the U.S. during this moment to be able to redevote that towards maybe a transmission line to Nunavut, maybe to electrify a trade corridor to Saskatchewan, Alberta, to talk to Ontario about how do we do this work together. There's a lot of talk around the country in terms of what does a recent election mean. I think if we sit around and talk politics, there's always going to be disagreement. But if we get to work and do the actual job of putting shovels into ground and building some of these trade corridors, putting people to work, that's how we bring every region of the country together.
The deal between Manitoba and Ontario includes an agreement on one of Premier Ford's obsessions, sales of alcoholic beverages. Some provinces restrict the direct-to-consumer shipping of alcoholic beverages. The industry has long argued that limits opportunities for sales growth. Premier Ford said for now his government will pursue one-on-one deals with other provinces on alcohol sales and encourage the federal government to come up with some kind of national standard.
Wouldn't it be great if we could go right across the country? You know, it's a shame that people in BC can't ship a bottle of wine, or we can't ship it over to them. And there's people that like our wine. I know Quebecers love Ontario Niagara wines. So we need to do it right across the country, in my opinion. But right now, it looks like it's going to be bilateral.
In New Brunswick, the Liberal Premier there, Susan Holt, says her government wants to strike more deals with more provinces on top of the one it already has with Ontario, but that the federal government has a big role to play as well.
Maybe I'm an impatient person. I want to strike while the iron's hot. The opportunity was there. We know that the work of true and full free trade is difficult, and so that's why we're entering into the conversations with every province in Canada. And we're feeling pretty optimistic about the federal government's commitment to removing the federal barriers. But the Canada Free Trade Agreement has multiple parties. So the federal government has to do their piece, and each and every other province has has to do their piece. So in the meantime, we're moving where we can move. We're making progress where we can make progress because we're realizing those benefits in April and May and June. And who knows what will happen July 1st, but these MOUs means those benefits with those provinces will exist for every month thereafter.
Speaking in Ottawa, where the new federal cabinet was meeting for the first time this week, Chrystia Freeland, the Minister of Internal Trade, said she's excited because internal trade is sexy.
I'm especially excited about internal trade. This is something that Canadian economists, Canadian geeks have been talking about for decades. Entire books have been written about it. The IMF has estimated that lifting all barriers to internal trade will add as much as 4% to our GDP. That is a lot, and we need it right now. And I really believe this is a moment we can get it done. Internal trade has become sexy. It has. I know, it's funny, but yet true. You see premiers across the country really putting their shoulder to the wheel. Yesterday, after the cabinet announcement, I heard from a number of premiers who got in touch with me directly and said, let's go, let's do this.
The breaking down of these interprovincial barriers is not just about consumer goods. It also involves different regulations in different provinces. For example, the issue of licensing, professional licensing, and the ability to transfer credentials between provinces. And different provinces have different regulations about trucking, including weight limits and operating hours. So there's still a lot of work to be done on this file. If these barriers are to be totally eliminated by Canada Day, just 46 days from today. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
On News Radio.
He's our expert in communications, crisis communications, political communications, branding, and leadership. Barry McLoughlin is back with us. Barry is the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Barry lectures at the Telfer School of Management at the University of Ottawa and at the MBA program at the Shannon School of Business at Cape Breton University. You can read Barry on his Substack. Welcome back.
Great to be with you again, Rob.
Oh, we're going to talk about two very well-known Canadian brands today with the news that Canadian Tire is going to pay $30 million, which seems like a bargain basement price, $30 million for all of the intellectual property belonging to Hudson's Bay. The sale includes the Hudson's Bay brand, the multicolored stripes motif, the coat of arms, and other trademarks. What do you think of this deal, Barry?
Well, I think it was an amazing deal that Canadian Tire got for the $30 million. That's quite something. You know, the Hudson Bay company, as we know, goes back like 400 years or something, the 1600s, and is an iconic Canadian brand by any reasonable stretch. And that means it has what is known as brand equity. And brand equity means that you can charge more for it. It is considered a luxury item. It is one that you can be driving down the highway and you see if you saw those multi-stripes on a billboard, you know right away who they're talking about. Imagine what it takes to get to that point. So that has equity, that has value and meaning. The real challenge will be, how does Canadian Tire deal with that? Well, obviously, Canadian Tire has become an iconic anchor store in many malls, like in Ottawa, Carlingwood, whoosh, resurrected with a huge, biggest one in Canada, Canadian Tire. But you can imagine that while it wants to be sort of today's version of a department store, it would be hard to want people to go, hey, I got this Canadian Tire sheets. Look at that Canadian Tire towels. No, it wouldn't work. You couldn't transfer the Canadian Tire brand into those kind of items. But right away, there's Hudson Bay Company can fill that for you. So I think they have to have a good strategy to roll this out and make sure that it returns the significant revenue it will need to return.
I mean, the Canadian Tire has other brands, Marks, for example. I do wonder if maybe there's a potential to partner with Marks, for example, given that Marks is basically a clothing retailer. Maybe there's some opportunity there.
But it's hard to beat the amount of foot traffic that comes into Canadian Tire, as well as their online, as well as In our mailboxes, we still have those, and yep, it's in there every week.
Sure.
So I think it's hard to top that. I think they'll end up with those kind of store within a store type of thing. You walk in on the second floor, and there will be in the quarter of that store will be Hudson Bay branded, and you go right there. They wouldn't mix it in with all the other stuff. I think you'll see that as a separate kind of mini store within the store. I believe that would be the smart thing for them to do. And I'm really glad they're doing it for many reasons. There are a lot of Canadians that were emotional about the loss of Hudson Bay Company. They really were. Yes. Even in our household, there was some kind of a sense of loss that I think that Canadian Tire was smart to pick up on this.
Yeah, and $30 million. I mean, this is a company that had $17 billion in sales last year, Canadian Tire. It's just a massive, massive retailer in Canada.
Absolutely.
With its own brand equity. So, $30 million, I say bargain basement price.
Yeah, it is really. Yeah, I think it is.
I mean, they're going to, you would think there'd be some benefit to Canadian Tire just in the fact that there's almost going to be goodwill. We saved this. It's still Canadian, and we're the ones who did it. Don't you think?
And it helps. That's right on. I think it helps them make a statement. They are not going to be they've absorbed Zellers, don't forget. The steep discount, low pricing kind of leader in Canada for a while. But you learn there isn't much equity in that. You can't make a profit if you get too down there unless you do the kind of dollar store thing that seems to work. It's totally dedicated, and its brand is lowest cost. And so, but, Canadian Tire will never be lowest cost. But it will be exactly what you need in your home, in your auto.
Sure.
So they've really done a great job of transforming that whole corporation.
I say to my wife all the time, how is it that we're in Canadian Tire again? What are we doing here every weekend? What are we doing here every weekend,
Yeah. First place Justin Trudeau went when he stepped down. Caught him at Canadian Tire.
I think the next story to watch in this whole Hudson's Bay drama is what's going to happen to the Royal Charter. A lot of Canadians will not be, because this is probably the most valuable asset that it has. I mean, it's a 355-year-old document signed by the King at the time, King Charles II, in 1670, right? Gosh, if that somehow lands in private hands and leaves the country and doesn't end up in a museum somewhere in Canada, there's going to be heck to pay for that.
Yeah, we got to wait we have to wait for King Charles III to come on board. Now it's happening. But I would say this, though, you know what? They've got to sort that out, because that would be part of the brand equity, the King's Charter. My goodness. There are very few products, at least in Canada, that have that. I know you go to London, you can see a number of these different ones, but boy, that is an amazing thing to have. So I think that's probably what they've negotiated. I think that you're able to transfer it as long as you're purchasing the assets. And if that's the only asset left, it sounds like it is. Boy, that's an amazing value proposition for Canadian Tire, and I believe they'll recover that 100-fold in not too short an order.
Okay, we'll be right back and turn our attention to the political week. I thought it was kind of a rough start for some of the new cabinet ministers, new positions after the cabinet shuffle announced by Mark Carney this week, the Prime Minister. Let's talk about the week that Mark Carney and some of his cabinet ministers had. Mr. Guilbeault, Stephen Guilbeault, who's not even the environment minister anymore, was nevertheless asked to comment on an east-west pipeline and said we don't need one. Gregor Robertson, the former mayor of Vancouver, who's the housing minister now, was asked, do housing prices need to come down, and said no. What would be your advice to Prime Minister Carney on the need for message discipline?
Well, having done this exact thing for, I think, every prime minister's cabinet from Brian Mulroney through to Justin Trudeau's, you're hired to really bring them in the room, focus on what are the core messages of this government, the importance of being connected to those core and not contradictory to those core messages, and to, of course, you're tailoring them to your portfolio. Okay, here's one rule. Don't start talking about one of your cabinet colleagues' portfolio and what you think he or she should be doing. Absolutely not. So, Mr. Guilbeault, we know that you were environment. You're no longer in environment. You're the new version, new name, little lengthy one to replace the Department of Canadian Heritage. Okay, that's what you're doing. And pipelines have nothing to do with that, okay? So we're going to ask you to defer that to your colleague in natural resources. We're going to ask you, or environment, and that's not your portfolio anymore, because now he probably already got the phone call from the PMO. He might even have got a phone call or two from one of those two cabinet colleagues to say, I'm sorry, next time stay out of our lane, okay? So that was just an obvious error. He never should have been that. Even got the percentage wrong. Only 44% of capacity in those pipelines turns out to be 70-something percent. So that was a good example of what are you doing here? I think he only gets one chance to do that, and then the polite phone call won't be that polite. Gregor Robertson, I watched that whole interview, and I thought that, boy, there was two things going on there. One is, it's an awkward political thing to say we don't want house prices to come down. Of course, you're taking the equity out of middle-class homeowners. That's what they're going to retire on. So it's a sensitive subject to bring that up. Secondly, his whole thing was blaming the federal and provincial government. Well, that happened to be part of that was Justin Trudeau's government, and here you are hammering them, blaming them. And I guess as the mayor of Vancouver, you had no role to play. She was pushing Cassie, was pushing him on this, and still, he kind of went back over it. He went back over it. So I thought that guy needs media training.
Wow.
Why'd they let him loose on such important issues without proper media training?
Yeah, I mean, my advice, I'm not a media trainer. My advice to them would have been, going into this cabinet meeting, would have been, the press gallery is going to be staking out this room.
Yep.
Walk right by. Don't answer any of their questions. And after the meeting, the prime minister will comment on how the meeting went. And then none of this happens. And the week goes much better. Yeah. And it's not this gong show that it turned out to be. That's what I would have done.
Well, I would like to have had 10 minutes in the room with them to say, okay, here's how you handle that. You don't have to duck and run. You don't have to be, you're trying to say that you're open, more transparent, than Polyev would have been with the media. So, I thought Anita Anand seemed to know her file. She was able to make a point on Israel, Gaza, which is a sensitive subject. She was able to deal with that and move on. But even if you don't want to do that, the least you can do is say, you know what, I just got this portfolio, and I'm consulting with my colleagues and learning these files very quickly. And, when we have an announcement to make, I certainly will make it. Our goal is to ensure blah, blah, blah. You have a couple of goal messages. And that's really as far as you go. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would almost, even if I did make any remarks to the news media, I'd almost make it like an NHL hockey player being interviewed at the intermission, Barry. Happy to be part of the team, just here to do whatever I can.
Yes.
And
nobody really expects. A journalist will throw out questions and they kind of go, only a fool would answer this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. She's standing right here. He's standing right here. I'm going to ask.
Lo and behold.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, lesson learned. Yeah. We'll see if it's repeated. Right. Thank you, Barry. Enjoy your long weekend. Great to hear from you today. Barry McLoughlin.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now you know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Well, he's been minding Ottawa's business all week long. Tom Korski is back with us. He's the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you, Rob.
Good. You won't have a budget to report on.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Isn't that something? The first time that we will not have a spring budget since the pandemic, 5 years. That used to be a big scandal. But in that year, 2020, they decided not to have one. They were the only order of government that didn't have a budget. And this year, they're really not going to have a fulsome budget and won't disclose the deficit until months after the budget year has ended. It's really, you wouldn't run a food truck this way, but there we have it.
I know. Yeah, we haven't had a budget in a year, and if you may recall, the last even mini budget, the fall economic update, didn't quite go as planned because the then Minister of Finance decided to quit on the Prime Minister that day. So it was just sort of delivered by the then House Leader, Karina Gould, and like, oh yeah, and here's the fall economic update. Here you go.
Rob, even that was a house of horrors. It disclosed they missed their deficit target by 55% for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
It was the biggest deficit outside of the pandemic era in Canadian history.
there's so much uncertainty in the Trump situation. Hogwash. Okay. People may not be aware. There are 1,000 people who work in Ottawa for the Department of Finance. Okay. It's not a big department. It's not like the Canada Revenue Agency with 55,000 employees, but it's still 1,000 employees toiling away on the government's finances. A lot of smart people, a lot of economists, a lot of accountants, a lot of people with post-secondary degrees. I actually looked up the organizational chart today for the Department of Finance. Okay. So you have the Minister of Finance, and then you have kind of the food chain underneath. You have the Deputy Minister. You have a Chief of Staff. You have an Acting Director, and you have a Director. You have a Special Advisor. And then you have 11 Assistant Deputy Ministers. Then you have 9 Associate Deputy Ministers.
Those are my favorite.
Yes. 5 Directors General, an Executive Director. This is the top of the food chain at the Department of Finance. And then you have about 1,000 number crunchers and policy wonks toiling away in the trenches of the office towers in Ottawa, or even probably working from home half the week. And you're telling me they can't put together a budget? That they're not, this is their job, is to know the finances of the country.
I mean, if the school board can figure it out, figure it out.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. Another thing I think people need to understand is there's been a revolving door in some of these government departments. That's one of the things that this week's cabinet shuffle really revealed. Many departments, they have been a revolving door for ministers. What are some examples?
Well, my favorite example is the Treasury Board, not the most well-known agency and yet the most crucial. The Treasury Board president, in fact, he was at a cabinet meeting this week, literally sits to the left of the Prime Minister. The Treasury Board is the board that oversees 250,000 federal employees, their union contracts, financial management, contracting, including $20 billion in consultants, contracts that go out annually. Every time they don't do their job, you have an arrive can. Every time they don't do their job, you have the RCMP kicking down the door at some contractor's office to take away the filing cabinet. 8 presidents of the Treasury Board in the last 6 years. If it was our mythical food truck downtown that had 8 managers in 6 years, you'd say, man, that is one smooth-running food truck. That's the Treasury Board for the guy. That used to be a top position, and now it's a joke.
Yeah. And the president of the Treasury Board, the new one, the latest one, Mr. Ali, has a bit of a notorious past as well. So
he does. MP Shafkat Ali from Brampton is a former realtor, and he has one claim to fame. He was first elected in 2021. In 2022, he actually had to apologize. This is a historic first in Canada, had to apologize to the whole House of Commons after he was caught attending a parliamentary session by video conference from the men's toilet on Parliament Hill. And he apologized after other MPs expressed outrage and revulsion. I can't believe I'm using these words.
I know.
Said
It's
one
crazy.
Conservative MP. The room was a toilet stall for crying out loud, end of quote.
I forgot about that because actually my former MP in my riding of the Pontiac in Quebec was even more notorious than that. He the famous Will Amos.
Twice.
Willie, who appeared not once was bad enough, but somehow twice appeared naked on a Zoom call doing parliamentary business. I miss that guy. He provided us with great material. Will Amos.
He was a character.
I hope he's doing well. But to the point, we've had now 8 presidents of the Treasury Board, which is basically you're the CEO of the civil service at the cabinet table. Okay. We've had 5 housing ministers in 6 years. And I counted them today, going back to 2015. 7 ministers of fisheries and oceans as well. You want people who can kind of get in there, get to know their files, not this revolving door of people at the top.
You know what it's telling you, Rob? It's telling you that those agencies or departments are on autopilot. It means no cabinet appointee is running them. The assistants are running it, and they're doing a great job.
We'll be right back. How does the Bank of Canada in a report describe people who take out a payday loan?
It's very unusual language, a very unusual report. It was done by bank researchers, and they asked themselves that very question. Who are these people who take out these payday loans at exorbitant rates? And they are exorbitant. 200, 365% is the legal limit on an annualized rate. And they asked themselves, and they concluded they lack self-control. Borrowers lack self-control, they said. Their estimate was, why do I characterize the report? Why don't I read from it? 1/3 of high-cost borrowers suffer from self-control issues, and the quote says your central bank.
Wow. Self-control issues. They suffer from temptation. Not desperation, but temptation, I guess, would be the conclusion to draw from that, Tom.
They wrote that exact word. They might be tempted to consume more in the present than is desirable for them in the long run, said the Bank of Canada researchers. This is an interesting take that would be jarring to anyone who's ever been poor. And it was also contradicts some other research that's been done, for instance, by Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, that's a federal agency, or the Government of Ontario. Who did they say go to payday lenders? Typically, wage earners who are up against the wall due to a sudden misfortune, like having to fix the transmission in a minivan, or a medical expense. They're typically renters, and they typically are not aware of what the interest charges actually are, because you do need to do a little math to calculate what a 2-week interest rate is on an annualized basis. There are MPs who could not pass that mathematical IQ test. There's been a lot of research done on why do people go to these really exorbitant loans.
Yeah. But for the most part, they're renters and what I would call the working poor. Exactly. Who have an unexpected expense, an emergency expense, and they're trying to deal with that. And they get underwater because of that. It's actually kind of insulting. It's actually kind of insulting, offensive almost. Well, it's about self-control. It's about okay, let's move along. Here with Tom Korski, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. The Harper government was seeing a spike in Mexican travelers making asylum claims in Canada and said you're going to need a visa. And then that dropped to almost nil. And then the Trudeau government came to power and lifted that visa requirement and then reversed course a few years later. So what happened after the visa requirement for Mexican travelers was lifted, and what happened after it was reinstated?
Once again, as soon as they brought back the visa in, asylum claims, bogus, these are almost all of them, bogus refugee claims, dropped like a stone. They fell by 75% quarter to quarter, year over year. Rob, how often in life do you see a government stand there and connect the red wire with the black wire, and people say, everyone will say, don't do it. There's going to be a spark and a fire. And this is what the cabinet did with these Mexican visas. Mexican had protested. Mexican diplomats said, you're hurting our feelings. And then they had to bring in the new visa requirement because they were just pouring off the aircraft, especially in Calgary and in Pearson in Toronto, with their refugee claims. This is a staggering figure. This is on the level from the Department of Immigration. How much did they save the taxpayers by having Mexican tourists get a visa before they landed on an aircraft in Canada? $660 million a year on chasing these bogus claims. 2/3 of $1 billion a year with a simple change in regulation. Staggering.
24,000 in 1 year in 2023. 24,000
refugee claimants.
And they were warned about that. That's the thing. They were warned about that.
No one listens. Not the red wire and the black. Don't do that.
We've talked in the past about all kinds of problems with the procurement oversight for Indigenous businesses who want to bid on government contracts. It apparently doesn't end there. I mean, if you're someone who you want to apply for, say, a job in the government, let alone a government contract, it would appear all you have to do is claim to be Indigenous, Tom.
Well, it's slightly more onerous than that. You have to fill out a one-page form that says on the
okay. I hereby claim that I am Indigenous. Yeah.
I am First Nations, Inuit, or Métis. They cannot verify it, and they do not verify it, says the Public Service Commission. And the only time that there would ever be an attempted verification is if someone says, hey, I see Buffy St. Marie working at the Weights and Measures Bureau, and she says she's Indigenous, but I'm pretty sure she's Italian-American from New England. What's up with that? Then you might.
I see Randy Boissonneau. He claims to be Strong Eagle Man. Is that really
Strong
true?
Eagle Man, my God. How could we forget?
Yeah.
How could we forget? First Nations, by the way, they have testified over and over.
Oh, yeah. It's a mess.
This is infuriating for them.
Okay. Let's end with something a little on the lighter side. Sportsnet, which is a Rogers property, so is this radio station, Rogers property. So these are our corporate cousins. They showed UFC Fight Night. So MMA, UFC Fight Night can be a little bloody at times on Saturday morning. Okay, so you imagine the kids are up there eating the cereal, parked in front of the TV, and this comes on. So there might have been a few complaints, I gathered, to the broadcast regulator. So what did the broadcast regulator say?
The regulator said, admittedly, there was the kicking and the punching and the nose breaking and the eye gouging. But, aficionados of the sport may appreciate the finer technical points. And they gave a very stern warning to Sportsnet. Next time, you should have a viewer advisory for the 12-year-olds who are eating their cornflakes, looking for the eye gouging and the nose breaking.
Okay. Viewer discretion is advised. If only we had those for the Saturday morning cartoons when we were growing up.
Too rough for me, Rob.
You think UFC is tough. Have you seen what they do to that Wile E. Coyote? All right.
The rocks and the bombs.
Enjoy your long weekend, you and the team at Blacklock's Reporter. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Rob. You too.
Yeah.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Here with David Smith on a Friday. We made it, Dave.
Yes, we did. Again.
Made it to the May 2-4 long weekend.
Oh, yeah.
As a matter of fact. Yeah. Even though the holiday, the May 2-4 holiday, is actually the May 1-9 holiday this time around. Because Victoria Day is the 19th. Yeah. By the way, if you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, now you know with Rob Snow, great new mobile app that will help you hear our show when you want to. Listen live, listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app, spelled Seekr, and it has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports, and you can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker, spelled Seekr. And there will be some new podcasts posted on the Seeker app. Just before David heads to Algonquin Park for his camping weekend in the rain for the Canada Day long weekend, he'll post the podcast of this show. And you're working on a big story podcast as well. What are you working on?
Yeah, I sat down this morning with Tim Dimopoulos, the publisher of Automotive News Canada.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked about the dream. The electric vehicle dream, the EV transition dream.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier this week.
You talked about that earlier this week, yeah. So, there was this vision a couple of years ago. It all seemed so fantastic and set. We were going to build Canada as a end-to-end supply chain for electric vehicles, from pulling the minerals out of the ground to shiny new cars rolling off of assembly lines. And by 2035, the government expects 100% of new cars sold in Canada to be electric vehicles. Problem with that, Honda has just pressed pause for 2 years on $15 billion worth of electric vehicle investment in this country. Meanwhile, there is a site in southern Ontario where Volkswagen is supposedly building an EV plant. It's just a patch of ground at this point. No plant is being built. And Northvolt, the Quebec-based operation, is bankrupt.
Right.
So all of these high-minded plans for the EV supply chain in Canada seem to be screeching to a halt. So I talked to Tim about that.
Okay.
Not only are tariffs a factor in this, but get this, Rob. In March, the most recent data that we have, EV sales in Canada dropped 45% in March, almost by half.
Wow.
So demand is cratering. The investment climate is uncertain. And I asked him, when you talk to people in the industry, what do they think about this 2035 idea? And he says most people see it as a pipe dream. It's just not realistic.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So when will people be able to listen to that, Dave?
That will be published on Monday, on the long weekend.
On Monday.
So a long weekend
Monday,
listen for you on Monday.
All right. Very good. Very good. The podcast for this show, in addition to being available on the Seeker app, also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, coming up, it's the Friday free-for-all Talkback.
Oh, yes.
I can't believe I do have a couple of conversation starters today. We are wide open on Fridays. We don't come up with topics, but we do have a couple of topics just to kind of, whet your appetite a little bit. Canada Post, Dave.
Oh,
you
my
believe
gosh.
we're going to go through this again? There could be another strike at Canada Post. And there's a mediator's report. The government appointed a mediator. Okay, you try and figure out a way to get these two sides to come to an agreement that they, because they haven't been able to do that in a year and a half. And the mediator says Canada Post is basically bankrupt.
Yikes.
It is out of money. And back in January, the government gave Canada Post $1 billion, Dave, to keep it afloat. So obviously can't keep doing that. The workers could go on strike next week. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with Canada Post? One of the topics we want to get into today with your help. Or we'll just follow your lead, because that's how we roll during a Friday free-for-all talkback. Lines are open right now. Love to hear from you. The latest breaking news is next on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today it's the Friday free-for-all. Our favorite day of the week around here. We don't come up with the topics on Fridays. We have some, but we'd rather follow your lead. What's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about something that's been in the news, there's always news happening. So we can talk about the news. If you want to talk about something you think should be in the news, you feel free to raise it here. Whatever it happens to be, we are all ready to go. We have phone lines open right now, ears to bend. Our call-in line, 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called us before, just mention that. We'll make your call a priority. Love to hear from first-time callers. Again, 1-833-668-2577. Every line available right now. Folks, I can't believe we're going to go through this again. What are we going to do with Canada Post? What are we going to do with this thing, Canada Post? How often are we going to watch the government just kind of kick this can down the road? Here we go again. As soon as next week, workers at Canada Post could be off the job again and on strike. May 22nd is the big day on the calendar. 1 week from yesterday. It's a total mess. It's a total mess at Canada Post. I'm sure you all remember Canada Post didn't make it a very good Christmas for a lot of Canadians. Workers were on strike. Just, if you're a Canada Post worker, just when you would want to be on strike in the run up to Christmas, the workers were off the job for 32 days. The government of the day, the Trudeau government, just kind of sat around and basically did nothing for a month, hoping that the two sides would come to a new agreement, even though the two sides had been trying to do that for a year and couldn't seem to manage it. And then finally, the government waved the white flag, but as far as Christmas went, it was too late for that. And the government kicked everything off to the Canada Industrial Relations Board, and it ordered the workers back to work. And then it just said, okay, the current collective agreement is in place, and it'll be in place for the next 6 months. And now those next 6 months are over as of next week. And by now, if you're like me and tens of millions of other Canadians, you've probably seen notices from your bank or your utility saying, hey, Canada Post could go on strike. Just keep that in mind. If you need to mail us a bill, keep that in mind. So we're basically right back to where we were in early December. The two sides aren't talking. They're far apart, whatever the issues happen to be at this stage of the game. But what's different this time is just to keep the lights on at Canada Post is costing taxpayers money. It used to be Canada Post funded its own operations through its own revenues from the sale of postage and courier fees and whatnot. But the corporation is out of money, and it said we're going broke, and there's a report today from the mediator that was appointed to try and resolve all of this. Canada Post is essentially bankrupt. The financial situation is so dire that back in January, the government gave Canada Post $1 billion. $1 billion. Now, Canada Post says it's a law. No, we're going to pay the money back. But goodness gracious, let's call it what it is. It was a bailout, okay? The government with your money bailed out Canada Post. And still, these workers want to go on strike next week. So I know we talked about this 6 months ago, but it's going to be a big news story next week. You just wait for it. We could get a head start today if you want. What should happen to Canada Post? Here's something else. I just want to pick your brain on this today. The underground economy. Now, this has not been in the news, but if you're a news reporter and you're looking for a good story to sink your teeth into, I think this would be a good one. The underground economy. Whenever there is a period of economic weakness, and we talked to an economist this week from the Bank of Montreal, one of the top economists there, said there's going to be a recession in Canada. Whenever that happens, the underground economy really starts to take off. People looking to save money, make more money. People do jobs for cash, get paid under the table. They make money that they don't report to the tax man. People pay for jobs around the house, home renovations, and whatnot. They pay cash. They save the tax. Whoever is doing the job, they're not reporting that as income. It's cash that goes under the mattress. Illegal smokes, black market pot, even booze, all part of the underground economy. According to a recent report from Statistics Canada, the underground economy in this country is booming. It's booming. $72 billion. $72 billion. 25% of that, the illicit sale of alcohol, tobacco, and pot. 20% of that, or $14 billion a year, unreported rent. People renting out apartments, rooms, condos, whole houses, not claiming it as income for tax purposes. Money under the table. What StatsCan calls unreported income for labor, tips. One big source, tips. But a lot of it, money that goes to contractors working in residential construction. Hey, I'll finish your basement, cash under the table. I'll build you a new patio, cash under the table. This kind of stuff. A third of all the activity in the underground economy is happening in residential construction. Questions for you. Maybe you have an opinion on this today. Have you witnessed activity in the underground economy? What do you see happening out there in the underground economy? Have you participated in the underground economy? You can tell us. We won't squeal on you. You don't even have to tell us your real name. And here's another question for you. Activity in the underground economy. What kind of activity in the underground economy would you view as wrong, immoral, unethical? A server at a restaurant not claiming tips, do you view that as unethical, immoral behavior? Somebody hiring a handyman to do work around the house, income not claimed, do you view that as immoral, unethical? What do you think? What do you think? Or do you say, given the state of things, hey, the economy's tough out there. Cost of living is brutal. Some people will have to do what they have to do to make ends meet. What would you say? Friday free for all. We'll follow your lead today. 1-833-668-2577, your calls. It's a Friday free for all talkback, so we're wide open today. On topics, whatever you want to talk about. Pass in Cambridge is up first today. First time caller. Thank you for calling, Pass. What's on your mind?
Hi. Thanks for
Hi
taking
there.
my call.
My pleasure.
I appreciate the Friday free-for-all.
How you do? Okay. Yeah, okay, great.
I'm not informed enough to comment on the Politics of Canada post, but one thing you were touching on, something I am familiar with, which is the underground world in
The underground
Canada.
economy. Yeah, okay.
The underground economy. And with that, I'll say there's a lot of legalities and, things like that that we're expected to uphold as Canadians. And I just want to say on behalf of all of the Canadians who are just trying to make it, follow your moral compass, do what you got to do, and make no apologies for it. As long as you're not hurting anyone, you're not hurting yourself.
Okay.
I don't think that you should feel guilty or any type of way for putting yourself first. When the government that we like to trust and I love for it to turn around for Canadians and I want the best for this country. I also want the best for its people. And when we're struggling and a hand is not being reached out, you sometimes have to pull yourself up. And I think a lot of that is the motivation for people to take on things that they don't report or are questionable.
Right.
And I think it's admirable.
When would that cross a line for you?
Well, for me, it would be good versus bad. I wouldn't want to
like
hurt
drug dealing,
anybody.
drug dealing.
Well,
I'm not talking about pot. I'm talking about like hardcore drug dealing.
Right.
or
I agree. So like
I don't
pot,
know,
whatever.
sex work,
I couldn't
sex
care
work,
less.
sex work.
Sex work is a topic I feel like we're way behind in the times. I wish that we were more progressive. I wish we would just not even just decriminalize, but I wish we would just go ahead and legalize it. It is work, and there's a huge community.
Yeah,
and,
but you would have to do it in such a way so that women wouldn't be exploited.
Right. People wouldn't be exploited. Agreed.
Well, people. Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
But I do feel like it exists for a reason. And if you don't acknowledge its existence and paint it as taboo, sex work is the oldest work. Sex work has been around forever. And as with it, you have all of the potential problems that come with it that raise a lot of issues for women and people and exploitation and trafficking and all of these things that we don't want. Right. But what we do want
But the server, as I said, the server in the restaurant who's not declaring tips as income, you'd be okay with that?
Absolutely. I'm so encouraging of this. I'm so encouraging of this. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, Pass. We got to run then. We got to run. Thank you for being a first-time caller. Appreciate it, taking advantage of the Friday free-for-all. Avery, also a first-time caller in Calgary today. Hi, Avery.
Hi.
Hi, Avery. What's on your mind?
Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I want to talk about Canada Post. And,
Canada Post. Here we go. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Worked there several years ago. It's a huge problem, and it's too bad that someone can't go in there and clean house because there's a lot. They're well paid. The workers are not all workers. Some of the workers are very lazy. They don't do more than what's expected or allowed to by the union. Supervisors are afraid to confront workers that are doing nothing. I witnessed workers leaving the workplace for a few hours, sometimes 4 or 5 hours, coming back and punching back out. And this goes on every single day. And the nepotism is rampant there. It's just a bad workplace.
It's a bad workplace, bad work culture. Bad work culture.
Yeah.
Okay.
And someone needs to go in there and open their eyes and look, because we keep bailing them out, and there's a problem there, and someone needs to go in there and have a look. I don't know who needs to do that, but it's
okay. So what will you think if there's a strike next week at Canada Post? What if the workers go on strike? What will you think? What do you think of the
doesn't really
workers?
affect
Would you, for example, would they have your support, the workers?
No.
No. Okay.
No. They don't. No. I just think something needs to be done, and someone needs to open their eyes and do something to make.
Because I don't know what their wage demand is now, but the last time they were on strike, they wanted a 19% raise over 4 years.
And they get paid well for what they do. Right now.
So a house cleaning from top to bottom when it comes to Canada Post, and no more bailouts.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Thank you, Avery. Good to hear from you.
A lot.
All right. Yeah. Bye-bye. And just like that, we're on our way. It's the Friday free-for-all Talkback on a Friday before a long weekend. Best kind of Friday there is. I'm Rob Snow. Be right back with more of your calls on News Radio. And up next on the Friday free-for-all Talkback is Jody. All right, Jody, you're on the line.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Jody.
Hey, I just want to say let's go Oilers, and I hope they play the Hurricanes in the finals, so to get some revenge back from was it 2006 when they played?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure on that.
And
not sure.
I just want to say nothing about Canada Post is the same old BS. You know how that is. And but
right.
I just want to talk about. I was just reading an article here about the MPs. I think in Ottawa, they spent $187.8 million last year.
Yeah.
Like that is outrageous.
That's a lot of money.
Like Canadians are struggling to put food on the table. And these people are spending money on like traveling, on food, on expensive dinners and lodging, and it's just totally disgusting. I mean, they should have some kind of like new legislation, or something, where they can only spend so much money. Like this is, like I said, like when I read that, it just
like a spending limit, per MP, a spending limit per MP, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Okay. Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Jody. Yeah, good to hear from you. I'll be curious to see what happens with the Leafs tonight. That's the big game I'm interested in tonight. Florida just rolled over the Leafs the other night. What was it? 6-1, I think, final score. So Florida could close that out and eliminate the team in blue tonight. Edmonton, they're off to Western Conference final. Winnipeg is still alive. But Dallas is still leading that series 3-2. And the Caps are out. Canes are moving on in the East in the NHL. Robert in Cambridge up next. Robert. Hello, Robert.
It's amazing what happens when $27 million of your team does absolutely nothing, eh?
That's the core.
By the way,
that's the core.
That's the core, exactly. Make sure, by the way, Rob, that you and your family have a fantastic long weekend. Just touching
thank you so much. Same to your family.
What about people wanting to give their taxes? Maybe people would want to give all their taxes and not hide anything if we actually spent it properly. This is just for Ontario, Rob. Don't fall over, okay? $52 billion given to the EV industry. $7 billion to PowerCo EV battery plant, now stopped. The big one, Honda 4 factory EV, canceled. Northvolt battery factory, bankrupt.
Bankrupt,
GM Ingersoll, laying off workers. Stellantis, halted production. Umicore factory suspended. Ford EcoPro canceled. When you have morons spending $52 billion of your money and you wonder why we want to hide a few dollars in taxes, that's probably where the rubber hits the road.
All right. Now, look, you know what you would get pushback on that? It would be, look, if you're not paying your taxes, you're not contributing fully to society and you're not funding important social programs. And what about our healthcare system? And what about old age security? And what about all of these valuable programs that people rely on?
Yeah, and when your dumb leaders keep raping you blind of all your money, it's tough for you to feel compassionate.
I know. Okay, thank you. On the underground economy. Yeah, that's one of our talkback topics today. Friday, free-for-all talkback, though. We're always willing to follow your lead.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Rope a line open topic today. Old school call-in radio. It's the Friday free-for-all. Talkback. Mike in Calgary up next. Hi, Mike.
Good morning.
Hello,
and happy
Mike.
Friday. I'd like to talk
same
about
to you,
Canada
Mike.
Post,
Yeah.
and
By all
here's
means,
how we
please.
can fix it.
Okay. All ears.
So first thing, let's hope Mark Carney can be the businessman that with his roots he came from. Canada Post about 3 years ago or 4 started what was called Canada Post Transformation, which was to convert to community mailboxes everywhere. The Trudeau government blocked that and stopped it, and that is one thing. Nobody, maybe businesses, need day-to-day delivery. Personal residences that get mail delivery. I happen to be very close to Canada Post. I have a relative that's in the business, so I'm quite aware. But community mailboxes, mail twice a week for your average residential person, I think that would help. The other thing Mark Carney should tell the leader of Canada Post, fix it or you're gone. That's my opinion for Friday.
Okay. Well, let me just pick your brain before you run off there. Because the government hired a mediator by the name of William Kaplan. Give us a report. Tell us what you think we could do, first of all, to bring these two sides together, and what a future would look like for a viable Canada Post. And that report was made public today, and this is basically what he says. It's broke. He says Canada Post is effectively insolvent. It's out of money. It has no more money. Okay, and in January, the government gave this place $1 billion of your money, my money. Here's what it says. Close more rural post offices, open more community mailboxes, and offer weekend parcel delivery with part-time workers. What do you think of that?
Perfect. It needs to run like a business. The problem is Canada Post employees have a long history. I'm going to say being a little bit spoiled, but they're not the problem. How the business is run, it needs to be run like a business. And again, back down to, I don't know about closing the rural post office. I think that's small potatoes. The big issue is day-to-day delivery. You could cut the staff in half, or you could streamline the staff and do it with half, because you deliver twice a week. And business is, I'm quite familiar with how the routes work. A business, they can get mail on certain things daily, but us at home, do I need my mail 5 times a week? I don't think so.
Not me. No. Okay. Thanks, Mike. That's Mike in Calgary. Michael is in Cape Breton Island, on Cape Breton Island today. God's country. Michael.
Hey, how you doing today, Rob?
I'm good. Where you been? Haven't heard from you in a while.
Well, I lost my vote in the election. I never lost it, but I just lay down and bleed for a while, and I'm back up,
okay,
ready to go out again and fight. All I can say to the electorate in this country, forgive them, for they know not what they did, but they'll realize in short order what they did, and it was wrong. Rob, what's really affecting me with all the issues we got here in this country, I can't even watch the television anymore. I feel so bad and sorry for what's going on over there in the Middle East, and the people that should be responsible and putting an end to it are turning a blind eye. The Pope, the whole works of them. Those little kids starving to death. 60 people, 100 people a night getting wiped out with great big bombs. And then you got the President of the United States over there getting a gift of a big 747. And gawking at the marble walls and everything. I think the world's gone to hell in the handbasket, Rob.
Okay. Well, I mean, the Pope, we can give the Pope a break. He's been on the job for a week. He's just called for peace talks. He has said that he would have peace talks at the Vatican for Ukraine and Russia. We could start there. But there are two sides to this story, sir. You just can't tell one side of the story about the suffering of the people in Gaza. You have to tell the story about the attack of October 7th. You have to tell the story about Hamas and the atrocities that were committed that day, and you have to tell the story about the hostages. What about the hostages? Why do people on the left always forget about the hostages? They're still holding hostages. Still holding hostages a year and a half later.
I am against going over and honoring nations that cut up reporters and put them in garbage bags.
Well, as am I, sir. As am I, sir.
I'm
yes.
against that,
yes.
Rob.
Yes.
I can't help it.
I understand that, sir. Yeah.
But I do feel bad for those women and little kids that are being starved to death and slaughtered like they're wild animals. If this world got any conscience, let man and humanity step in and hold the ones responsible that are doing all the slaughtering over there in the Middle East. It got to stop,
all
Rob.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Thanks, bud.
I hear you. War is hell. Thank you, Michael. We'll stop here. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback Friday Free For All. Go off in all directions. One minute you're talking about the mail, and the next you're trying to bring peace to the Middle East. That's just the way it goes sometimes. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Two lines there if you want to grab one and join the Friday free-for-all today. Let's go to Sean in Calgary. Sean, you're up next.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Sean. Good to hear from you. Thank you. What's on your mind?
I'm in one of those neighborhoods that got a community box way back before they canceled them all. And I tell you, in my community box, I get about 2 pounds of flyers a week. Now, there's no way a door-to-door guy can carry all those flyers. But if there's little vans in those community boxes, they get money for every one of those flyers. So there's a way to make more money. I had to go to the post office yesterday. I went to one downtown Calgary, 5th and 6th. There were 3 employees standing there doing nothing.
Right.
3 employees where there could have been 1. And if they had more...
How many customers were there? Sean, how many people were in there? You were the only customer, were you?
I went right to the front of the line.
Really?
So, I mean, we have Canada Post Office boxes in all of the Shoppers Drug Marts. It's a Canadian company. So why are we not...
Sure, yeah.
You know, they're making Canada Post paying them money, which is good. Canadian company making money from a government position. Close more of those unnecessary offices. Add more community mailboxes.
The old-fashioned post office. You want? Yeah, that's one of the recommendations, especially in rural areas. You know.
Exactly, and with more of those community boxes, I mean, they could be delivering thousands of pounds of flyers. We can recycle all of them. That's what we all do. But getting money for all those flyers, there's a huge revenue source. And I'm just not sure why the Liberals canceled that, because Canada Post would be making money, not being bailed out again.
I'm not sure. The real problem at Canada Post, it seems to me from reading this report, is the direct mail, like the flyers, and of course letter mail, all that is way down. But courier volume is that side of the business is up, but Canada Post can't compete on price.
Yeah, but again, those flyers, I mean, that's not down. I mean, I put my community box is right outside my house. So I put a small bin out there, tired of people just taking the flyers and letting them blow into the park.
And did you? Okay.
It's literally 10 pounds a week of people dumping stuff in there, and that's just not the people that are just not taking it home with them.
So, Sean, look, it looks like next Thursday, the workers at Canada Post could be on strike again. Would you support the workers if they went on strike?
No, I don't. I just think I feel sorry for people that are working for Canada Post because, it's really poorly run. It's overstaffed. It's not underfunded. They're just missing out on their own chances to have huge revenue sources. Again, flyers. What do they get? 1 or 2 cents each. That's a lot of money if the whole city had community boxes. That's enough money to pay for everybody that's working.
All right, Sean. Thank you. Good call.
Thanks,
John
Rob.
in, I love that you love our show. In Dartmouth today, John. Hi, John.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, John. What's on your mind?
One quick comment, and not on the topic I call about, but on the one you were talking about, what's going on in the Middle East. Unfortunately, and you know this yourself, that a lot of people don't know the history. They just don't know the history of what's going on over there. And it all stems down from two brothers from the same father, and their descendants below them. But there's a hatred amongst a group of people and a group of countries against Israel, and that hatred's not going to go away until the end of time. That's just the way it's going to be. And yes, it's sad what's happening to the people over there in Gaza, but you know, we see it. We see it from here. That terrorist group steals every bit of aid that goes in there and sells it to the people they're there with. They only use those people as pawns. But that's a big topic to talk about. So I'm going to go to the main one I call about Canada Post. I believe that Canada Post should be placed into receivership. And I believe that they should sit down with the union and say, this is the way it is. We could probably put a proposal on the table to profit share with you and allow the workers to become part owners of Canada Post. But with doing that, they would have to make some drastic changes. In other words, allowing parcel delivery by private contractors, allowing parcel delivery by part-time workers on weekends, cutting mail back to 3 days a week, and make it a profit-generated organization. Our government should not be pouring any more money into it, and we'll get along fine if they go on strike and stay on strike. We'll get along just fine because we're going more and more to electronic media or sources of information. I get all my bills and whatnot. I get it all online. But my wife likes to use Canada Post. She's old-fashioned. She wants to use the postage stamp. That's fine. Nice to get the flyers, but you can go online and look at the flyers. You don't have to get them. Save the trees. But Canada Post needs to be finally put on the spot and put it into receivership, period.
So what will you think? So if they go on strike next week, you see the Canada Post people picketing, on the streets of Dartmouth. You're not honking at them.
Not at all.
When you drive by. Not at all.
I know too many of them that work for Canada Post, and I know a little bit about it. And as far as I'm concerned, any company, I don't care what you are, the station you work for, if they're losing money, people got to go.
Oh, I know, sir.
Changes got to be
I know,
made.
sir.
So now it's time to lay the cards on the table.
I've been on the receiving end of that in the radio business. Believe me, John, I know all about it. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
and it's time,
all right.
The purpose of what they're trying to do, let them go on strike, place Canada Post in the receivership, and then see what we can save out of it and go back to square one. That's it. It's the only way to fix it.
Good call, John. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, bye-bye. Friday free-for-all Talkback. I'm Rob Snow, back with more of your calls next on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to Kitchener, Ontario. Jay is on the Friday free-for-all. Hi, Jay.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Hi, Jay. How are you?
Well, sir, I just wanted to let you know, I, as a long-suffering Leaf fan, am preparing for the worst, hoping I'm wrong, hoping that the Leafs do well, but I'm not expecting them to win until 2076. Because by then it'll be 109 years without the Cup, and the Cubs spent 108 years without winning anything. And so I hope I'm wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish I could offer you some moral support, Jay.
Mm-hmm.
But I come from a long line of men who hate the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I understand.
So I just can't be with you on that one.
I've got the same problem with the Buffalo Bills.
Okay. All right. Okay. I appreciate that, Jay. Well, we'll see what happens tonight. I mean, a Game 7 would be exciting.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
but they're going to have to
Well, look what
They
happened
got to
in
get
Washington.
that.
Look what happened to Washington.
Yeah, sorry, Jay.
Look what happened to Washington.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, they lost the cup, and they have what they have down there right now. We'll talk to you soon.
They've got to get that Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner team going. They're getting all the heck.
It is what it is, and we'll hope for the best. And if not, we'll start again in October.
There's always next season, as the Leafs have been saying since 1967, right, Jay?
And they will be in 2026. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Jay. Good to hear from you. Talk to you soon. Yeah, buddy. You keep well. Janice is in Calgary today. Hi, Janice.
Hello. How are you doing?
Hi, Janice. I'm good. How you doing?
Not very good.
Not very good. Okay.
Too many problems.
Okay.
No, I'm just wondering, when a company charges you for a service and you've paid it, but they won't finish doing what they started, how do you make them finish?
Oh, I don't know. What's going on? What do you mean?
They had an A rating from the Better Business Bureau. No, I've been waiting.
Right.
I paid for trees to be removed from my yard because they're too close to the foundation.
I see. Okay.
It's been over 7 years, and I quit paying my condo fees for a while, but they put a lien on my place, so I paid them again, but I won't pay the interest because they didn't do the job. And the lady says, well, we walked past your place and there is no trees in your yard. Well, there's 10 trees in my yard, so I don't know what to do about it. Service Canada won't help me. Service Alberta won't help me. The Better Business Bureau won't help me. So where do I go?
I don't know, because it sounds as though you've been everywhere.
Yeah, so do I take them to court?
Well, I suppose that's an option. Did you consult a lawyer?
No, because I don't want to pay the fees for that.
You don't want to pay the fees. Right, okay. Yeah, I don't blame you there. But how could the condo board say there's no trees on your property if you say there's 10 trees on your property? And why would it be up to you? Why would it be up to you as like the owner of the condo? Why isn't it shouldn't it be the condo board that kind of takes care of the landscaping
They've got these rules now, Rob. They don't have to do the work.
Okay.
They can say they're doing it, but they don't have to do it.
Okay. How much are you paying in condo fees every month?
$384.
Oh, that's actually not too bad, I guess, these days.
And in the time I've been here, I've paid almost $100,000 in condo fees, and I've gotten nothing done. So that's kind of a lot to pay for nothing.
That's a lot to pay for nothing, yeah. But you're convinced that you have trees and they're doing damage to your foundation.
Right.
And the condo board says there are no trees.
Right. And the
forest for the trees.
And the management company says there's no trees.
You're sure there are trees there?
I can see
Are
them.
you sure there are trees there? Are you sure there are trees there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what to tell you. Good luck with that one. Bye-bye. Okay, that's hour number 1 of Talkback Friday free-for-all before the long weekend. A full hour is still ahead, and we'd love to hear from you. Help us make it to the weekend, will you? The news is next.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
And welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. It is our Friday free-for-all. It's your last chance to have at us for a few days. We're away on Monday. We're taking a long weekend. Hope you have a long weekend as well. But we follow your lead on Fridays. We have some topics in the mix here. We've been talking about Canada Post. Could be another Canada Post strike on Friday. The underground economy as well. Doing very well. $72 billion a year. It's costing the Canadian economy. The underground economy. We can talk about that as well. Politics. Always open for a discussion on politics. But let's go to Jordan in Halifax. Find out what is on Jordan's mind today. Hi, Jordan.
Hi, Todd. How are you doing today?
Yeah, it's Rob here.
Hi there, Rob. I just have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you call the Israel's actions on Gaza for the last year and a half since October 7th? What would you categorize that as?
war.
Why is it war?
What would you call it?
I would call it a genocide, as per
Of course you would.
International, and a whole bunch of other international organizations, Médecins Sans Frontières, UNICEF, UNRWA, even Jewish Voice for Peace, and then you also have Israeli organizations itself.
Right.
Some of them.
Did you say UNRWA? You said UNRWA? UNRWA? Yeah. Really? You're gonna cite UNRWA?
Yeah.
As a legitimate source? UNRWA, which had staff members who participated in the atrocity of October 7th. You're going to cite them as a source?
Okay, sure, I understand. Even if there are guilty people within certain organizations, how does that condemn an entire organization for the actions of a couple? How can you justify that?
Okay.
How can you? Why are you dismissing the other organizations?
The previous conservative government was right to defund that organization, and it was a big mistake by the Liberal government to send any money to that organization, UNRWA. Completely illegitimate organization. What was the other one that you cited? Jewish Voices?
I cited Amnesty International. I cited UN. I cited the ruling for the arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu for committing genocide in Gaza. So why the dismissal of all these organizations there?
Well, because it's a war, sir. What did you expect would happen after the atrocities that were committed on October 7th? Did you think Israel was just going to lay down and let that happen? What did you think the response was going to be?
Yeah, no, that is understandable. So, but why target innocent civilians and innocent, over 35,000 children killed, Rob? Mutilated.
Okay. What's your
homes.
And what's your source on that?
Just international organizations that's been
international organizations. Okay. All right. Okay.
And the local. Yeah.
Just because some radical left-wing organizations call it a genocide doesn't make it a genocide.
Okay. Well, how is Amnesty International a radical organization? How can you just paint this one stroke? Well, how can you paint all organizations like this with one brush?
Okay.
I do not understand.
What makes you? Well, why would you just believe at face value what these organizations say without doing any critical thinking?
How is there no critical thinking involved? I've been looking into all these organizations, and it's just not one organization. There's tons of organizations that are.
Okay. Do you believe Israel has the right to defend itself?
Do you believe the civilians have the right?
Do you believe Israel has the right to exist? Do you believe Israel has the right to exist as a safe homeland for the Jewish people?
Absolutely, but what I don't agree with.
And yet it's surrounded by enemies, right? You have Hamas over there. You have Hezbollah over there. Muslim Brotherhood, Islamic Jihad. Everywhere you look around that, take a look at the map, sir.
Yes, but how? I understand your point.
And what did you think the response was going to be? And again, I come back to this. What did you really think the response was going to be to an atrocity like that?
Is you
kidnapping, raping, murder,
schools, and you're blocking
unprovoked.
You're blocking aid. How is that not?
And why is it Israel's responsibility to provide aid to its to an enemy that wants to wipe it off the map, sir?
I don't.
Why do we have pro-Hamas protesters in the streets of every Canadian city almost every weekend, crying from the river to the sea?
They are not pro-Hamas protesters. They're protesting for Palestine.
Why are they saying from the river to the sea? Why are they saying from the river to the sea? You know what that means, right? From the river to the sea? You know what that means? That means no Israel, sir. That means no state of Israel.
Yeah, I understand, but this was what they've been saying a long time.
Are you saying that Israel doesn't have the right to retaliate against Hamas for the atrocities that were committed on October 7th?
That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying, why commit genocide against the population? Why?
Well, you say they're committing. You say they're committing genocide. You say they're committing genocide, and I just happen to disagree with you on that. And that'll have to be our time. I've been very generous with the time. I appreciate your point of view. I don't share it, and we're not going to solve this. Two guys on the radio in 5 minutes. The complicated situation in the Middle East. But I appreciate your point of view, even if I don't agree with it. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback, hour number 2, and this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday free-for-all Talkback. Every single line is available right now. What's going on? If you want to call and get us into the weekend on the Friday free-for-all Talkback, 1-833-668-2577. The wait won't be too long. We've been all over the map today, literally all over the map. We haven't talked much this week about Canadian politics on any of our talkbacks this week. What do you think of your new government? Your new Mark Carney-led Liberal government in Ottawa? Kind of a rocky start. Kind of a rocky start for the Mark Carney cabinet. We had some real doozies this week. You had Stephen Guilbeault. God bless him. An endless source of material, Mr. Guilbeault, saying we don't need any more pipelines. That's basically what he said. He misled the public about the Trans Mountain Expansion project, saying it's only 40% capacity. And said, oh, well, maybe we should use all of that before we start building another pipeline. It's actually at 77% capacity. But certainly throwing cold water on the idea of having something like an Energy East pipeline. He said, well, right now there's no company that wants to build an Energy East pipeline, forgetting that there was a company that wanted to build it and spent $1 billion trying to build it before it waved the white flag and I guess faced environmental reality. You may have a thought on that. The housing minister, talked about him yesterday, the former mayor of Vancouver, Gregor Robertson, who said house prices don't need to come down, which was kind of a curious comment, because if you speak with anyone, well, really under the age of 40 in this country, they would love nothing more than to see lower housing prices. He said we need to have stability in the market and build a lot more affordable housing. We talked a lot about housing yesterday, but Gregor Robertson kind of off to a rocky start as the new housing minister. And as Tom Korski from Blacklock's Reporter said, just the 5th housing minister in the last 6 years. And then you have the new justice minister and attorney general, Liberal MP from Central Nova, Sean Fraser, who you remember when the Liberals were down 25 points in the polls, he quit and said he wanted to spend more time with his family. He had the teary-eyed news conference on what turned out to be the same day Chrystia Freeland resigned. And then when there was the big bounce in the Liberals in the polls, Justin Trudeau resigned, Mark Carney came back. So did Sean Fraser. He had a change of heart. Maybe he didn't like his family after all. Anyway, he was cornered by a member of the press gallery today who was asked about his workload. You know, you have young children. You said you wanted to spend more time with your family. And this is what he said.
Decided not to run again. You said it was because you wanted to spend more time with your family, and you said when you were coming back again that you worked out a deal with Mr. Carney that you'd be able to, have a little bit more work-life balance. How does that jive with your new role?
Well, I expect what you're going to see is when the House of Commons is not sitting, given the nature of the portfolio, a lot of the stakeholders we have are less interested in having you attend groundbreakings, the openings of new buildings that you may have funded, and are quite accustomed to having meetings virtually. So I anticipate during constituency weeks I'm going to be based in my hometown a little more than I was before. There may be an opportunity, depending on what's going on in the House, to avail myself, not all the time, of course, but once in a while, of the virtual abilities to participate in the House of Commons proceedings. So we're going to figure some of this out as we go.
I'll be working from home sometimes. So there you go. He's only the Justice Minister and the Attorney General of Canada, like the top law enforcement official in the country. Work from home every now and then. And then we learn there's not going to be a budget this year. There will be what's known as a mini budget, a fall economic update sometime in October. That caught a lot of people off guard. There's not going to be kind of a full accounting of just where things stand right now, the financial position of this government, and what the economic forecasts are for Canada in this time of uncertainty. Of course, there are people, well-paid people, and many of them in your nation's capital who work on this every single day. We have 1,000 people working in Ottawa, work for the Department of Finance. I mean, really smart people, too. Lots of economists, lots of accountants, lots of people with postgraduate degrees, MBAs, lots of letters after their names, all making really good money. And this is a department. I mentioned this with Tom Korski earlier today. I mean, it has, on top of the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Revenue, a deputy minister, a chief of staff, an acting director, a director, a special advisor, 11, because you need 11. You can't get by with 10. You need 11 assistant deputy ministers. And below them, you need 9 associate deputy ministers. And as well, you need, because one director general wouldn't do, you need 5 of those and an executive director. I mean, that's the top of the food chain at your Department of Finance in Ottawa. And then you have another 1,000 number crunchers and policy wonks all working under them, toiling day in and day out on what would be the big thing, the budget. The budget. And even though there hasn't been a budget in a year, and the last fall economic update was a gong show because that was when Chrystia Freeland quit that day, Minister of Finance. The new government, led by Prime Minister Mark Carney, PhD in economics, Oxford, won't manage to even produce a full-blown budget this year. To me, they're just not off to a great start. But what do you think about that? Or anything else? Share your thoughts. Friday, free-for-all talkback hour. Open mind, open line, open topic. Shabir in Calgary. Shabir.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Shabir.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for giving everyone a platform to share our thoughts.
Sure.
Firstly.
Yeah.
I just wanted to...
What are your thoughts?
I just wanted to refer to a call earlier that you had with someone. I forget their name. But you asked the caller what the meaning is when protesters in Calgary are saying from river to the sea, Palestine will be free, correct? You asked the caller that?
Yeah.
Well, many of the protesters, they're trying to counteract what the Likud party has, like the current Israeli government, in their founding documents. So in their founding documents back in the 70s, I believe, in Netanyahu's party, it explicitly says, and you can look it up yourself too, I'm not making it up, it's not like a conspiracy theory. It says between the sea and the Jordan, there will only be Israeli sovereignty. Right? So.
Okay.
Yeah, like that.
And do you think the people who are out there chanting that in the streets day in and day out are aware of that? Do you think that that's their primary motivation?
I can't speak for everyone.
Like, you may be aware of it. You may be aware of it. You sound like a bright guy.
Yeah.
You've done your research, whatever. Do you think that's what these people are saying? Or do you think these people view the state of Israel as an illegitimate nation that has no right to exist?
I think Israel has a right to exist. I think a lot of protesters do, because I do speak with some of them. What we don't agree with is the illegal settlements. I mean, Canada, U.S., our governments, we don't either. We don't recognize illegal settlements.
Sure.
That's where kind of the issue is. I think like the current generation, at least here in Canada, I have some friends in UK as well. They recognize the state of Israel to the 1967 borders, but I guess the real issue is now, like, it looks like it's, the Likud Party's documents from the 70s, that's coming into, that's like happening now. Like, it looks like Israel is just
okay. I guess what I want to get at, look, it's a terrible situation with what's going on. Okay. It's terrible. The human suffering is terrible. I recognize that. War is hell. Everybody knows war is hell. I guess what I would ask people is, would any of this be happening if not for the events of and the atrocities of October 7th? Would any of this be happening? Would Israel be in Gaza right now if not for October 7th? Israel left Gaza in 2005. They left there like 20 years ago.
Israel left Gaza, but they were not the population in Gaza. They were not able to roam around freely, conduct business.
That's total nonsense. There are so many people from Gaza who went and sought employment in Israel, sir. Sick people from Gaza went to Israel for medical treatment.
Yes, you're right, and of course.
Yes, I'm right.
But were they
Thank
allowed
you very much.
to go to West Bank?
I don't know about the West Bank, but as well, they weren't in the West Bank. As well,
people in Gaza,
right?
They were not allowed to go to West Bank.
But I come back to this again. What's happening in Gaza is terrible. What's happening in Gaza? Would it be happening if not for October 7th? And what did you think the aftermath was going to be of an atrocity like that? That Israel would just roll over and say, yes, you can kill almost 2,000 of our people? Of course not. Especially not with Benjamin Netanyahu as prime minister. Be right back after the news. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
All right, who do we have up next here on the Friday Free For All? Looks like it's Tony in Alberta. Hello, Tony.
Hey, Rob. How you doing, brother?
I'm hanging in here, buddy. Yeah, just rolling with it.
Calling you from beautiful Alberta. I enjoy your show.
That's good.
I listen to you almost all the time, especially Fridays.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple of things here. I listened to a couple of your callers on the Palestinian and Israeli.
Sure. Nice lighthearted Friday topic, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to get a lot of... Anyways, from the river to the sea, but Palestine will be free. Where is that saying kill all Israelis? Or
it deems the Israeli state to be non-existent, sir.
No. It says, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. You know, Palestinians have been living in an open-air prison in Gaza for how long now? That's what they say, right? Correct. Now, you're telling me you box up people and you don't give them their full rights. Now, I'm not saying that Hamas is not giving them any recognition for what they did on October 7th. But prior to October
How about what they've done since 2007, sir?
Okay, but we can say, how about what Israel's done since 1948? Right?
Okay.
So right now, the massacre that's happening in Gaza,
but
you can't tell me that 2,000 hostages have been taken, but we are going to kill 80,000 innocent people, and those 80,000 innocent people
again, who knows what the number is if Hamas is the only source that's giving you the number?
Okay, hold on.
Right?
If Hamas killed 2,000 Israeli hostages, the 2,000 Israeli hostages, aren't they going to grow up, their family, their kids, grandkids, their whole lineage, aren't they going to grow up hating the Palestinians and Hamas?
Well, isn't that what's been happening in Gaza? Hasn't generation after generation been raised to hate the Jews?
Rob, from 1948 till now, how many Palestinians have been killed? Let's call it 10,000 Palestinians have been killed.
And how many wars has Israel? How many wars has Israel had to fight to defend itself? I mean, the day after the state was created, how many countries declared war on Israel the very next day?
Yeah, but that doesn't give you the right to annihilate a whole city. Like let's just go back here. Hypothetically speaking, now the natives have taken some hostages because they want their land back. Do we go and annihilate a whole city, a whole region, no? How does that make sense? Right now, what's happening in Gaza is a land grab. That's all it is.
Well, you're calling it a land grab, but again, I come back to this. Israel left Gaza in 2005.
They left Gaza.
Gaza held an election in 2007. The reward for Israel leaving Gaza was that they elected Hamas to be the leadership in Gaza. Has Hamas ever had another election since 2007? Has Hamas even had an election since 2007?
Correct, but because nobody had given nobody was the voice of Gaza until Hamas came in. Hamas got voted in. Hamas was a political party. Where it turned terrorist, I have no idea. Everybody calling them a terrorist, I have no idea where it turned terrorist. It's a political party.
This is a lot more than a political party, sir. It's a designated terrorist. It's a designated terrorist organization. It's a designated terrorist organization in this country, sir.
Listen to me 1 second.
Look. Again. I come back to this. Look, I come back to this. It's terrible what's happening. The human suffering is terrible. What is happening? Would it be happening?
On both sides.
Would it be happening at all if October 7th had not happened, sir? Ask yourself that.
Rob, ask yourself this.
Would the Israeli military be in Gaza today doing what it's doing? Would the Israeli military be in there today doing what it's doing if not for October 7th, sir? Can you answer me that question, please? Can you answer me that question?
Listen, just one question here. Would it have happened? Would October 7th have happened if it wasn't for since 1948 all the destruction that's been happened? Come on.
So do you really? Come on.
Gaza used vegetable oil because they couldn't get gasoline in their city. They used vegetable oil.
How much money has come from other countries? How much money has come from other countries? How much has Canada sent to the Palestinians over the decades? And where has that money gone? Has it gone to the Palestinian people, or has it gone to Hamas? So Hamas can buy ammunition and build tunnels and everything else. You and I are not going to settle this on the radio today, sir. No. I gotta go. You and I are not. Look, we're just going around in circles here, sir. You and I are just going around in circles. You have your viewpoint. I have mine. We're not accomplishing anything. I would like to see it all end. If it could all end tomorrow, and there could be a peaceful Palestinian state next to a safe homeland for the Jewish people called Israel, wouldn't that be just excellent? Wouldn't that solve a lot of the world's problems, sir? We're not there yet. Long way to go. I need a break. 1-833-668-2577. More of your calls just ahead. Well, let's go to Jersey in Kitchener. Hello, Jersey. You're on the Friday Free for All, Jersey. Go ahead.
Yes, Michelle, here we go. Off speaker. Hi there. Yes, I call myself Jersey Bill. I've called before as Bill. I've used Jersey Bill for Mike Farwell's show over the years because I come from Jersey.
Okay.
I'm the U.S. citizen, Canadian resident.
Oh yes. Okay. Sure. Okay.
Yeah. I've been thinking about the Arab-Israeli situation for a long time, and my feelings are a little more complex. Of course, I'm neither a Jew nor an Arab, so I can be a little bit more objective in this. But I do see it. Okay. You have to go back into the Holocaust, and that's where Israel came out of. And the real unfortunate thing is that the Western powers have given Israel enough to defend itself. At the same time, no provision is made for the Palestinians. and nobody wants to step in and be like a buffer between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And the why this goes back into the Holocaust is I believe that the various Israeli governments, especially Netanyahu's government, has this equation in their head that if one of us is killed, we will use force to kill 100 or 1,000 of you. And the Palestinians, of course, over the years have sort of also added to this equation, because if you see if there's maybe one or two Israelis that are captured, in order to do an exchange, it's never one for one. It's always one Israeli for 100 or 200 Palestinians.
Yeah.
And so that overvalues the Israelis and undervalues the Palestinians, and everyone undervalues the Palestinians, and nobody wants to put themselves. I mean, I can understand where the Western powers don't want to be the peacekeepers there. But why don't the established Arab countries want to pacify the region and give those people a more stable life? But they don't, and so the war goes on, because
some of the leaders in some of those countries view and fund. View Israel the same way Hamas views Israel, that it is a totally illegitimate state that has no right to exist, and funds Hamas.
Yeah, and you know what's even worse?
Qatar is what, Iran, of course.
Yeah, but what I find even worse is nobody's as good at killing Arabs as other Arabs. You know, the whole idea of the Arab Spring, but all those revolutions, the disaster in Syria and in Lebanon, Lebanon for sure, but also Libya. You know, they're just they've never, with few exceptions, they're not allowed a stable government, and that's really unfortunate. And that's the unfortunate thing where Israel's trying to exist in this sea of instability around it. And I wish there was a way. I mean, we've come close. You know, I mean, you dealt with Yasser.
Yes, we have been close in the past.
Yasser Arafat was willing to deal with Rabin. Unfortunately, a Jewish radical said we can't allow that, and they assassinated Rabin, and the peace process fell apart. I mean, it's really, really sad and tragic. And if people don't understand that, and only, and I understand if you're closer to it, if you have relatives in the area, you're going to have those visceral reactions.
Yeah. Okay.
It's at some point. Hopefully passions will cool and some solution will be found.
We can only hope, sir. Thank you, Jersey Bill in Kitchener. Good to hear from you. Emerson in Calgary up next. Emerson.
Yeah, Rob, I have something on my mind. I want to tell everybody about it. I want them all to know how I'm feeling today. At issue with Rosemary Barton, Rob, she has Chantal Hebert and Andrew Coyne on there. During the election, Poilievre's too Trumpy. He's saying all the wrong things. He's speaking angrily, blah, blah, blah. And now here we are with Mark Carney. Surprise, surprise, they're all bashing him. Oh, my God, there's no budget. Oh, my God, he's appointed this guy from Gregor Robinson from Vancouver. He was a terrible mayor. What's he doing? Oh, this isn't right. We got to have a budget before October or before the end of the year. I don't like the start of it. I'm thinking, oh, my God, you guys were like bashing the Conservatives. Now you got what you want, and now you're not happy. So, this is why CBC is not balanced. They've lost credibility. I mean, personally, I don't know about you, Rob, but I'm so drained from listening to all these people who go back and forth, up and down like a toilet seat. It's disgusting. It really is. And you know what?
Okay.
I'll say what you said a few weeks ago. Probably 24 months from now, we'll probably have another election, because there really is no real confidence in this government, despite what they say, they have a strong mandate. I disagree. I think this was all about Trump. It wasn't about the issues. And when people start realizing we're still stuck with those issues, they're going to wake up big time. Before I go, I just want to say to you, Rob, I wish you and your beautiful wife a great long weekend. You know why? Because you both deserve it. You listen to us all day long.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Emerson. Very, very kind of you to say. My my lovely wife actually took off and left me just for the weekend, though. Don't worry, don't panic. But she'll be back on Tuesday. She's actually gone to Prince Edward Island for a few days to spend some time with her family, and she'll be back with me next week. But I hope everybody has a great long weekend as well, and that the weather forecast looks up, because David's got a lot of canoeing and camping and fishing in Algonquin Park for his long weekend plans. I'm Rob Snow. It's still time to fit in a couple of more calls here on News Radio. Burlington up next. Leslie in Burlington. Hello, Leslie.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Hi, Leslie. I hear you just fine, Leslie.
You hear me?
I hear you. I hear you loud and clear, Leslie. Go ahead. What's your opinion today?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have something I want to say to everybody. I'm very appreciated the gentleman before what he's saying. I'm completely agree, and also I hope everybody not waiting for the next election 2 years later. Everybody need to take action. It's our country. It's only we can take action, we can get change. So spread the word, educate your friend, everybody around you, what is right, what is wrong. The liberal right now is just 2.0. That's for sure.
2.0.
So
okay.
The elbow up been cheat, and so they've been scammed. So we need
People
to
have been
educate
scammed.
them.
Okay.
Hopefully next time. Hello.
Yeah.
Hopefully
so,
next time,
Leslie, when you say people have been
they don't get scammed. So
scammed. Okay. So when you say people have been scammed, when you say people have been
for decades become so weak, that's why we cannot fight back with U.S. So we need to be stronger, and we can do everything. So nothing with outside. So now we got no deals. Kanye went to U.S., talked to Trump. The only thing to say to in front of his face is never happened. We never will be 51 states. That's it. We got no deal. Other countries that got a deal, the trade war get decreased in percentage. We got no deal because Trump wants our auto industry and all those. Right. He will get it because we're weak. So we need to take action, make our strong. And any bad policy start now. Every citizen need do the petition. What that costs, something like that against that.
Yeah.
So we need to ready take action, not waiting for the 2 years later.
Okay. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Leslie. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I think that's it for us, David. We made it. Made it to the end.
That'll do it. Winding down the second.
That'll do it, eh?
Not enough time for any more calls.
So where are you going anyway for the weekend?
Northern part of Algonquin Park. So the southern part was all booked up for the long weekend, of course.
All booked up, eh?
That's the part that's closer to Toronto, the center of the universe.
Oh, have fun with that then. You're going to get all the cottage country traffic.
Well, no, because we're heading up the North Way out of Eastern Ontario here in Ottawa. We're actually going to drive basically almost all of the way to North Bay and then south into Algonquin Park. And then we're going to stay at a campground tonight and then do a series of 3 different lakes Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and come back Monday evening.
Well, that sounds fabulous. Well, I got my boat on the lake. I think I might be. It looks like the weather's starting to clear up. So
how
that's
are the
pretty
black
good.
flies up in your place now?
Terrible.
Yeah, they're bad.
Brutal.
Eh?
It is brutal. Yeah, I was out for about an hour last night with the dog, and I had to go inside. The flies were eating me alive, Dave. But anyway, look, you have a great time. Be safe out there.
I'll do my best.
And we will come back to you with another Talkback, and always insight and analysis on the latest breaking news on Tuesday next week. The latest breaking news coming up next. I'm Rob Snow with David Smith. This is News Radio.